Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith, for everybody who doesn't know. Uh, Many of you know that I used to teach martial arts and train MMA fighters. And if you've been to a fight, or maybe you've been a fighter, or if you've watched the fighters, you'll see that while the fighter is involved, that in his corner, his coach and his supporters and many people like that are all back there cheering him on and shouting advice, which when you're in the middle of something like that, you know, I never heard advice, but I guess some do. They kind of they train for that, and their coach says, get the arm, watch out, this you know the deal, right? Yeah, I just sounded like Biden. You know the deal. Um, and they think that that keeps them going. I never did that. I never did that. When we went to when I took my guys to tournaments or to fights, uh, they went in there and they were the one involved in it, and they needed to do it. Now the reason that I didn't coach them from the side is because I had already coached them. I had already trained them, and they were going to take into the fight what they had. I wasn't in there, and I explained this to them everywhere we went. People thought it was kind of odd, everybody else's coaches was out there, yelling, and I was just watching. And the reason for that was simply this: that when you get into a situation, you take with you what you have. Okay, you don't take other people's advice. You don't take other people's pumping you up, talking you up, keeping you going. You go into it with what you have, and as a result, you're either going to come out on top or have a real learning experience. You will find out what you don't know. The same is true when everything crashes around you. Whether it's the collapse of the financial system, whether it's the collapse of the government's not going to collapse, but it's going to. The government could evolve into something that you don't like, even as much as you don't like it now. Uh, the grid could collapse. All sorts of things could happen, and when that happens, you're going to have what you have, no more. Now, sometimes in a fight, a person will get to the point to where, well, I think I've reached the end of what I know, and then it's time to kind of see if you can make stuff up along the way, and somehow get yourself out of it, through it. You know. And sometimes that can work, but usually you take a lot more lumps, a lot more bruises, and a lot more damage when you're trying to figure it out during the situation than if you actually went in knowing what you were doing and having enough resources, shall we say, having enough knowledge, having the physical ability and all that. Uh, that helps you get through it a lot easier. You can get through it just on grit and toughness and the luck, uh, but you get through it a lot tougher. So, like I said, the same thing is true when everything crashes around. That when it crashes, you're going to have what you have. You're going to have the equipment you have. You're going to have the supplies that you have. You're going to have the knowledge you have. You're going to have the skills you have. You're going to have the tools you have. You're going to have the friends you have. Going to have all those things that you have. And if you don't have enough for the situation, it's going to be a day to remember, right? I'm going to read a story when I get done with this one, because this is going on YouTube. And so when I get done with this, I'm going into my office because I'm going to read something. I'm going to read a story that was written in Pitch Magazine, I think back in 2000, something like that. They did a Pitch at the time was a big weekly, kind of an alternative newspaper in Kansas City, and they carried all the cool stuff, that the regular papers didn't carry. And it's a big article on the organization that I ran, and one of the fights that they covered with one of my kids in it. It's a great lesson there. How one guy went into it, and he was a scary looking guy. And before the fight, he was jumping around, and, like you see in the Rocky movies. Maybe he got that from a Rocky movie. I don't know. And my kid just kind of walked in, and I'll read what happens. And it's surprising what happens. It is a good lesson what happens. I'll do that on the Patreon channel. I put a lot of stuff on the Patreon channel, by the way. If you're not with us there, you may not realize a lot of stuff, much more on the Patreon channel, and the link is right down below. And you might want to join us. You should want to join us if you really are serious about preparedness. But I'll read that after this. But the thing for you to think about is trying to project. Now, if you've read my books, I go into great detail about the things that can happen and how to prepare for it. I say that my books, the Stone Mount series, I don't have them out here with me now, is the complete guide to preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a complete collapse of everything. Okay. I'm just now sending out I've been spending the last week signing books and sending them out, and we're just about out. I got to reorder. You can get them on Amazon. The link's down below, and they are a doctorate in preparedness. I say you'll never be able to ask me a question that I haven't already answered in detail in those books. But in those books, I explain all of the things that it takes to be truly prepared for a complete collapse of everything. Now, there are those who will maintain that it's impossible to be fully prepared for anything and everything. And those are people who haven't done it themselves, who don't think they can do it themselves. And so instead of trying to do better themselves, they make themselves feel better by saying it can't be done. Don't be dissuaded by those people. Don't be dissuaded. You can be as prepared as you want to be, and as prepared as your energy and your imaginations and your creativity and your resources allow you to be. And that's another critical aspect of real preparedness, and that's resources. It's an aspect that far too many people who claim to be interested in preparedness, those that I call preppers, it's one that they simply won't address sufficiently, and that is making more money so that they have more resources. And that's too bad, and those people hamstring themselves in their preparedness journeys because they find it more comfortable staying with that cocoon that they've made for themselves, trying to develop ways to get by and live with very little or nothing, and they're uncomfortable with building more and more and more. It's kind of, and there was a term that used to go around in the business circles many years ago, and that was fear of success. Everybody will talk about fear of failure. Well, a lot of people aren't fearful of failure. They're used to failure. They prefer failure as long as they can find an excuse for it. It makes them feel good. But to succeed takes effort. It takes time. It takes a great many things. And most people, to be real honest, simply aren't willing to put in the time and the effort. And many people never having been above a certain level of success, don't know, are kind of fearful. It's an area of life they're not familiar with. They don't know anything about it. They don't want to go there. Okay, it's fear of the unknown, and it's kind of funny that fear of success is essentially fear of the unknown for many people because they simply haven't been that successful. Well, there's no reason that you can't be successful. You keep building, keep applying yourself, keep learning more things, keep earning more money, keep developing your preparedness and every other aspect of your life, your businesses, your resources, and you have a goal that's beyond immediate satisfaction. Too many people, they get out there, they make good money, but they buy a bunch of stuff. They buy a bunch of stuff, or they buy things that hold them back from continuing, to develop. They might buy more guns, or they might buy a newer truck, instead of taking that money and putting it down on, some land or another piece of property or something. And so they kind of stick themselves on a low level. And it's simply because they can't foresee, life beyond a certain point. And that's too bad. Because when it all comes crashing down, they, you, me, we're going to have what we have. No more. And when it does come crashing down, just like the fighter who has reached the end of his abilities and knowledge, we can start scrapping. We can say, oh man, I don't know. I didn't plan for this. Well, see, preparedness is planning for anything and everything. And there are a lot of people going to hit that, but I didn't plan for this. It didn't occur to me that this could happen. And that's why I make my videos the way I do. Instead of teaching you how to build a fire or pack a bag or anything like that, I try to give you the concepts of understanding anything can happen, and the only limitations you have are self-imposed. You impose the limitations on yourself that keep you from preparing for more and better. And so, like I said, when it comes crashing down, if you reach that point, say, man, I am at the limits of my knowledge and preparedness. Well, now you're going to be just kind of scratching through that, like that fighter that found himself on his back and doesn't know on the mat and doesn't know what to do next. And you can just kind of, do your best. And maybe it'll work out all right. Usually it doesn't. It's the fight usually goes to the one who's most prepared, and has the most knowledge and skills, and also the greatest heart. The heart, the will get you through it. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out to you today. If it all crashed today, and we know that we're entering a dangerous time with the election coming up, all sorts of shenanigans can happen, right? Sure. And one of those shenanigans could be that they might shut down the grid, the internet, whatever, either for the country or for a section or whatever. If it's just for a section, what if you're in that section? Okay. Have you prepared for it? Have you really sat down and taken a look at what would this mean? What would be the effect, the real effect, not the surface effect? I hear a lot of videos and a lot of people talking about, and they talk pretty superficially about what would happen if the grid went down or the internet went down. You need to take a deep dive. Try to imagine every part of your life it would affect, and plan and prepare to be able to deal with that. Because when it all comes crashing down, you're going to have what you have and nothing more. And you're going to be, and whatever else you can scramble for, and scrambling around while you got thousands of other people scrambling around, is not the recipe for success, right? Okay, hey. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to read that story for the people over on Patreon. Again, I invite you to come over to Patreon if you'd like. You'll get a lot out of it. You'll enjoy it. You'll learn a lot. It's a great community. We have a lot of great people over there who themselves are very knowledgeable about many different things beyond what I am, and you'll learn from them. So you all have a great day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, because when it happens, you're going to have what you need. And I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.